Welcome, everyone, to The Voice of Meaning. Today, I have a very special guest. His name is Jim Hayden. I met Jim on a wonderful cruise to around New Zealand and to Australia, and we sat with he and his lovely wife, Sabina, almost every evening meal, and we actually did an outing together and became friends. Jim has a very, very interesting story that's connected to the meaning of work. And notice I didn't say the meaning of hard work or the meaning of work. Jim's had an incredible, interesting work life that has enabled him to go from, zero to enough assets to have a wonderful retirement life starting at age 55. So, Jim, thank you for coming, and just tell us a little bit about what your values are now and what they were 25 years ago or so.
Interesting question. I hadn't really given it much thought, but they have changed, obviously. When I was 20, 25, my focus was food on the table, having my bills paid. My father had always beat into us that good credit was better than cash in hand. Cash in hand is good, but having good credit is even better. So to have all of my bills paid was a very important thing. To not kill myself was very interesting as well, because I was in the military and I was a mechanic at the time, and I had been a mechanic since I could walk. And then I got into sales. And as my income changed, my focus on what was important changed. And then I took a job as a plumber, and I realized just how hard work could be. And I realized that I didn't like it. I enjoyed the income, but I didn't like the work. So I would dig as fast as I could because I hated to do it, just to move on. And then as we moved into the last 15, 20 years, I realized that time is the new currency. Everybody gets the same amount. It's the same bank account for everybody. And we've all heard the stories of how many seconds are in a day. And, Donald Trump gets the same amount. Joe Biden gets the same amount. We get the same amount. It's all the same. It's what you do with it. And so time is our currency. So I started writing myself out of the schedule, and I started figuring out, how can I use the efforts of others to free my time up so that I could actually enjoy my life instead of working for a living. And it inevitably has succeeded, and now I don't have to work at all, other than rebuilding my dock or cleaning my garage or things that I choose to do. So perspective has definitely changed over the last 30 years, and I think it should.
Okay. In our conversation, you told me that hard work is overrated. Can you explain that a little bit?
Absolutely. So I really believe that hard work is overrated. Hard work is laborious. It is just tough. I mean, if you want to build a body or go to the gym or something like that, that's hard work, but it's hard work for a result. But we all grew up hearing the same things. If you work hard, you pay attention, you follow what the boss says, you get along with everybody, and you'll be successful. You'll be rewarded with everything that you could possibly imagine. And the only thing that I was ever rewarded with was more work. The harder I worked, the more they gave me, because I got it done before anybody else. And then when I finally came to a point where I couldn't do the work, then they were disappointed that I couldn't do the work that I didn't have to do when I got hired there, because I wasn't that good. So it was heartening to learn. And I also learned that if you're just going to work hard, that's not going to get you very much. It'll get you a ditch. It'll get you a nice ditch. But if you focus on the result, then you can take the path of least resistance to get you there. Some people, it's literally struggling. I don't read well. I am not illiterate, but I don't read well. So for me to read a book, that in itself is work. It takes me a lot of attention to read it. But if that's the only way that I can learn something, and the result is that I'm smarter at the end of it, then I think that's worth it. So hard work just to be hard working, to say, oh, I can't believe how hard I work today, that's not gonna, it's not really gonna result in anything lasting.
Interesting. I do know too that you made a transition to starting a business and working for yourself, and it was a bagel shop and bakery.
Yes.
That was pretty hard work, wasn't it?
It so I moved to Panama City with my ex-wife, and she was military. So I told her that when we got here, I was never working for somebody else again. And unfortunately or fortunately, the only business that I could afford was a bakery. And I didn't give very much for the bakery. And I spent the next 10 years, basically from 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning till 5 to 7 at night every day, and sometimes 1 to 5 on Sunday, building the business, making repairs to the equipment to keep it running so that I didn't have to spend any money on repairs, and making bagels and marketing the business and community involvement and whatever else I could do to bring awareness to the business. And it was very physical. I couldn't afford a lot of staff, but I was working. The result I was working for is my goal was to bring the sales up to $500,000 so that I would eventually get bought out by a national chain of bagel shops. That was my goal originally, and that's why we called it the Bagel Maker and not Jim's Bagel Shop, because you have to begin with the end in mind. I think with most things you do, you want to focus on the result, and then whatever it takes you to get there, that's the work. That's the work part of it. And if you can actually get somebody else to do the work for you, I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, because then you can free up your mind to actually figure out how to be more efficient.
But you as a person who confided in me that you're a bit lazy still was working 14, 16 hours a day for a stretch. How are you able to motivate yourself to do that?
So my focus was on the results. It was always on the results. And if I don't get results, then I don't feel like I'm successful. And then it wouldn't make all that hard work worth it. So in order for me to justify working hard, I have to have a pretty strong result goal. And so, yeah, I am lazy. And a friend of mine has told me, he says, if you want to know the definition of efficiency, give a hard job to a lazy man, and they will find the most efficient way to make that happen, regardless of what it is. I literally just rebuilt my dock. We have a floating dock, and it was 26 feet long. And instead of staggering all of my boards, I got 12 10-foot boards, and I got 12 16-foot boards, and there's one seam. It's the easiest way to do it, and I still got my dock redecked. So it was the easiest way to do it to get the result that I wanted. So I was able
I love that quote. Yeah, if you want to get something done efficiently, hire a lazy person.
Yeah.
So and that results are what's important, because that gave you meaning, knowing that you were busting your butt, but you were working towards certain results. Was
Absolutely.
was it a straight line, or did you have some failures and problems and glitches?
We had so many failures. But our business philosophy was that we would never adjust our store hours. If something happened, and say we were slow one day, we wouldn't close early just because we were slow. We would stay open until 3, which is our scheduled time. And even when our oven died, our oven completely shot craps, and I had to go fix it, and it took me 2 days to fix it, I had my staff there every day. We had nothing to sell other than some cookies we made in a small oven, and we could make salads and smoothies. And we opened up the door and we apologized to everybody who walked in that we didn't have what we had. And we would sell them a salad or a sandwich, or we would sell them a salad or a smoothie. And if they like, oh, I really wanted a bagel or whatever, then we would give them free of charge a cookie just for stopping by and letting them know on Friday we'll be reopened. Because we hate going to a place. I have a saying, people only go back to a well so many times if there's no water. You're only, hey, this is where the well is. The bucket's empty. The bucket's empty. You're not going to go back there again and again and again. So you just mark it off your list, and that restaurant is dead to you, regardless of whether they reopen or not. It doesn't matter because of that one time. So it was very important to us to never not be open during our scheduled times. But the result was good.
Yeah, that was good advice. And then you also talked about how you nurtured new employees, and help them along and encourage them. How were you able to do that?
Well, first off, like, see previous comment for me being a horrible reader, and I'm not illiterate, but reading is difficult. It's not how I learn best. But there's a book called The 1 Minute Manager, and it's not a very large book. It probably took me a week to read it. It would probably take you an hour. But I read it, and I read it about every 3 years. And when I would hire a new employee, I would praise absolutely everything they did in order to build a good, solid foundation and build on it. I would praise them for showing up on time. And if they showed up 5 minutes early, I would go over the top. I'd put $5 in their tip jar just to make them feel good that that's what I want. Whatever result that I really wanted, I made sure that they knew that if they hit those results, I don't care how hard they work or how hard they say they're going to work. If it takes them 20 minutes to make their cream cheese, we make our own cream cheese. If it takes them 20 minutes to make their own cream cheese, that's a long time. And, I can make 20 pounds of cream cheese in 20 minutes. It doesn't take that long. So once I get them up to speed, but I would praise them on how they chop onions. And then as it went on, I would praise them on how fast they chop onions and how happy the customers are when they're done dealing with them. And just like children, not that my employees were children, they certainly weren't. But with children, the things that you compliment them on change as they grow. You're not going to compliment a 10-year-old for not going to the restroom on themselves, but you will on a 2 or 3-year-old. I'm assuming we don't have kids, but as time went on and their skill set got better and better and their responsibility and their pay went up, they were complimented on different things. They were complimented on expectation as opposed to previous records. So it gave them something to look forward to. And I would never, ever, ever chastise in public. If I had any issues with them at all, we would go in a back room and we would discuss it as adults, but never in front of the customers. That's the worst thing you could possibly do to anybody, employee, friend, brother, sister, doesn't matter.
What was your retention like? A lot of people complain you can't find good help anymore. How did you manage that?
So, Sarah, there are several factors, I think, and one of the things I've actually been praised with is the amount of time that my employees have been with me. In fact, right now, there's one lady at the bagel shop who's been there longer than I have, and I opened it because I sold it 2 years ago, and she's still there. One of the things that motivates me, I'll get to your point here in a second, but one of the things that motivates me is commission, money. I want to know that I have a stake in my efforts. So we developed, believe it or not, a commission program for everybody that works at the bakery. It's not a huge amount, but if it's 1% of every dollar that crosses the counter, that could be quite a bit of money on top of their hourly, on top of their tips, on top of bonuses. If we hit a max level of sales for a day, if let's just say our daily sales are $1,500 and all of a sudden we hit $1,510, everybody who works that day gets $100 on the spot. Everybody. And then the next time, if it's $1,511, everybody gets $100. So
Mm-hmm.
everybody's constantly working to attain more and more and more without me having to browbeat them or remind them or any of that. Not to mention that every time they get their paycheck, they have their hourly, their tips, and then there's a little bonus as well. I also treated them with respect, and we've bailed some out of jail. We've loaned some of them money. We've given them cars, bikes, you name it. We've tried to help them. We've moved employees both into our rentals, out of our rentals, from rentals. But to answer your original question, there's one lady who has been there. I won't name any names, but she's been there now for 21 years, and it's been open for 22 years,
Mm-hmm.
21 and a half years. So she's still there. There's another young man who's been there for 14 years, and one lady just left, and she was with me for 14 years, and she just left not that long ago. So we really didn't have a lot of turnover. We had one floater on top of those three, other than myself.
Mm-hmm.
So really, we didn't have a lot of turnover.
Let's talk a little bit about hospitality. You told me a story about somebody who came in there who enjoyed going to your shop, but confessed that the quality of the bagel wasn't that good, and that people came anyway, and that luckily he taught you how to make a better bagel. Let's hear about
Absolutely. That. So when I started, Tony, now we're friends, he told me how to make a bagel. I couldn't even make a cake from a box. It was horrible. I didn't know how to bake. I didn't know how to run a business. I didn't know anything. All I knew is that I wanted to be self-employed. I just wanted to do it myself or with a team of people who would help me, because I'm smart enough to know that I don't know everything. And I think that's pretty smart. But he told me how to do everything, and he came back like three months later, and he realized that everything I was doing was wrong. I wasn't mixing the dough long enough. I wasn't proofing it long enough. I wasn't cooking it at a high enough setting. I wasn't steaming it right. I wasn't serving it right. I wasn't. There was nothing I was doing that was correct. But what I was doing right was I was loving on my customers, and I was letting them know that, hey, I'm new, so please tell me anything that you would do differently. And I have a firm belief that customers will forget how good or bad the food is. They'll forget how good or bad the service is, but they will never forget how they feel in your establishment. If I propose to Sabina in that restaurant, we will go back there year after year after year or week after week, because it's a happy place. It's a wonderful thing that's happened. By the same token, if we go there and she turns me down or dumps me, I'm probably not going to go back there. Don't feel very well. So, and I wouldn't, the other part of that is with the employees, I'm not of the mindset that the customer is always right. Now, I do believe that there's a much longer quote than just the customer is always right. But I had a sign and I put it on our walk-in cooler in the kitchen, and it said, the customer is not always right, but we can always try to make them happy. And we
I like
would,
that.
and then we would fire some, and we would fire some. And
Mm-hmm.
when Tony came down 3 months after we opened, and he laughed, huge belly laughs, and he's a baker. He at the time he was quite large, and he
Mm-hmm.
was your typical Italian baker, huge Italian guy. And to hear him laugh at me was degrading, but also humorous at the same time. And he immediately took off his coat, rolled up his sleeves, washed his hands, and he and I made dough. And he walked me through the whole process, and that's the best way I could learn. And he told me, he said, I can't believe that you have a line at all. These bagels are horrible, and they're just not, it's not a good product. He says, so I don't think you're not going to be a success. I think you're going to be a huge success, because there are a lot of people that do a lot less with a lot more. And it turned out to work. It's still there. We've won a lot of awards through the years. We've been heavily involved in the community and the arts and the chamber. It's a wonderful town to be in as well, and the community has really supported us. That was one, that
So,
as far as
so when did you actually sell the business?
So we opened the business in December 1st of 2003, and we sold it October 1st of 2021.
Okay. So about 2.5 years ago. Do you
Yes.
miss it?
Initially, I did, and it was and even up to about a year ago, I still would identify as the old bagel maker, because in town, nobody really knew who I was. We had a slogan: "Is the bagel maker makes better bagels begin with better batter, go see Bagel Maker Bob." And everybody knew me as Bob, but that's not my name. But
Yeah.
it was just an ad campaign that got brought up. So I was the bagel maker. Nobody knew who I was. Nobody cared who I was. And I didn't care that they didn't know, because it wasn't about me. I needed the income. So I'll play the part. But I love the community. I love the bakery, and I still bake. In fact, I've got sourdough right now proofing. I'll be baking it later on today. So,
Nice.
but initially, yes, I did miss it. And then as time went on, it was no longer mine. It had changed. It had morphed into what it is now, which I think is still very similar, but I haven't been in a long time just because of our travels.
Right. Well, I hope when we visit you in October, we can pay a visit to your
Absolutely.
place. And
Absolutely.
yeah, this is a great accomplishment. And some entrepreneurs open up more businesses and are serial business creators. You've chosen a path where you are able to build the wealth you need to do what you need to do for the remaining part of your life, and have made that meaningful to you. But I'm wondering, sometimes do you ever have dreams that they call you up and say, our baker is sick, can you come in and bake this morning, or something like that?
I did it one time. I did it one time, and so I'm like, I could go down there at any time at 3:30 in the morning, and I could bake with the baker. But honestly, no. I'm like I said, if you see previous comment, I'm pretty lazy. But getting back to your hard work, the bakery, as soon as it started generating any kind of income that I didn't need to live, I started buying property. And then Sabina and we have opened up 3 property management businesses. And that is one of those is what we sold in February of last year. So the bakery was a good catalyst to help build other things, but that only created more and more work. After the hurricane, we were working 16, 18 hours a day to rebuild properties and to bring in FEMA trailers and everything else. So a tremendous amount of work went into it, with the result being employees had housing and property values went up. And then we were able to capitalize on that and sell off enough to allow us to retire.
So some people invest their profits into growing their actual business. You invested your profits to other investments, and
both, actually.
Yes.
We grew to 4 stores. We actually grew to 4 locations in Bay County, and that was in 2010. I'm sorry, that was in 2003, 4, and 5. And then in 2010, we started shutting them down because leases were coming up, and we decided that time was our currency, and I didn't need 4 stores. We knew that we were going to take a pay cut, but what we didn't know is that we didn't take a pay cut. All of the people who knew where we were, they found us downtown, and our net profits actually went up, where our efforts actually went down, and our cost of goods went down because we didn't have to spread it out over so many places. So again, a happy blessing, a happy accident. I've been very fortunate making the wrong decision, or what I think is the wrong decision, and then it works out okay. So
again, we learn from it.
Yes.
So say over the course of the year, 1 million people watch this interview, and particularly people who are wondering how they can find meaning in their careers and work. Do you have any other advice that you'd like to give them? This is your audience now.
Yeah, I would absolutely 100% define and write down what your perfect life is. What is it? Is it driving a Ferrari? I don't get it. I don't understand that, but they're nice cars, but rent one. But define what it is that you want. What does sitting on the couch watching soap operas every day, is that your perfect life, eating bonbons? Whatever it is, write it down and then kind of figure out when you're going to get it and how you're going to get it. And if you don't define your success, unfortunately, others will define your success for you. And that goes for everything. With the people in the McMansions who literally are working only to keep up with the Joneses next door. There's people who are driving the Ferraris only to be seen in a Ferrari. It doesn't bring them any happiness, but it makes them feel elevated, which is false happiness, I guess. So define what it is that you want to do and figure out why you can't do it now. And if that means, okay, well, I can't do it now, but I could do it in 3 years. If this, and this work together, then start on the first step. A journey of 1,000 miles starts with one step. Just take it. It may not be the right one. You can always turn around and go back. It's not the end of the world. You're not writing it in concrete. And even if you are, take a hammer, break it. It's okay. When my ex-wife got stationed in Florida here, and I told all of my friends, it's good to share your dreams with other people. And I told all my other plumber friends, I said, when I get to Florida, I'm never working for someone else again. And I was 32 33 maybe, when I made this claim. And all of them, most of them said, well, how are you going to break into new markets? How are you going to make it? And I said, what do you mean? And they're like, well, there's a pie. And we've all heard that. If I get a big slice of pie, you get less pie. And after 2 seconds of thinking, I said, I don't see that way. I think there is an abundance of pie. I think I can make my own pie. I think everybody can just make their own pie. Just because I get more, everybody else can have more. And nothing made me happier, and Sabina as well, than to see our employees move on to their own businesses or to move on to a better job. And we've had several through the years that we've helped some, we've pushed some, but to see them be successful in their own right, I guess like a parent, it's very rewarding, because a bakery is not a career, but it's a good job. So I really think if somebody wants to do whatever it is they want to do, write it down, define it, talk to your spouse about it. Hey, this is what I want to do. How do we make this happen? And that's the important question. How do you make this happen? It's not impossible. There's nothing impossible. Anybody can do anything they want to do. You can parachute without a parachute once, but it's not impossible.
That's right. Yes. Well, thank you so much. It's been very insightful, fun, meaningful. I look forward to continuing our friendship and connections, and enjoy baking pies in life. And any other parting words?
I'll make you a pie when you come down in October.
Sounds good. All right. All the best, and thank you, audience, for listening. And please subscribe and share, and so that we can bring in more great content